Good morning, John Hoyt here with Security Tactics, and today just want to talk about some advice that I would give to folks that are interested in getting into information security, or even they already have a position in information security, but they want to get a new job, and really this could be useful for any person looking to get a position, but my experiences in the information security realm and recently going through to hire a new SOC analyst position, a person for that position. And, I've been through, myself many times been through interviews, and also I have interviewed, not, I wouldn't say often, but enough that I've gone through the process. And one of the things that really changed my mindset for this recent hiring process was a book called The Talent War. And, this book, it's a short book, but it's not very long, but it's very, very good at kind of keying in on a few things that really stood out to me. And one of those mainly is that, so many times in the interview process, you get the resume and you're looking through the resume and you're reading through it and you're picking out the things that stand out to you that are matching to the criteria you need to find, for this position. So for a SOC analyst, that might be, some understanding of networking, some understanding of the tools that you're using in your environment, some troubleshooting experience, and, things like that, you're looking to match to that position. Typically, it's kind of the keyword, right? The keywords that stand out. If you're using something like Splunk, you look for Splunk. Oh, do they have Splunk? Or do they have a similar experience with a different tool that is like maybe Elk or something else, right? They've used a SIM. They've used a search tool, Elasticsearch or something similar that they're familiar with doing that process and that skill. And you just naturally do that. You naturally go through and start looking and matching what you need to what this position to what the resume has listed. And it's kind of, people know this. People know that and HR and recruiters really encourage their people to make sure they have kind of the keyword buzz list, word cloud on the resume as much as possible. But what you don't know is you can see that they listed a tool that you're familiar with, maybe like Nmap, and you're like, okay, great, they listed Nmap, but you don't know how much they know about Nmap. You don't know if that's something that they've used for years or if that's something they just use one time, right? So what this book really highlighted was, there's a lot of those skills, a lot of the technical skills, the hands-on skills, the on-the-job skills, you can train for. There's a baseline that you need to have. You don't want somebody that you just, depending on the position, that just is starting from level 0, ground, the base level, maybe like a little bit higher than that. But whatever your minimum requirement is, then not focusing so much on the other skills, how much experience they have doing that skill, because you can train. Most of the time you can train those skills, and especially for this position as a SOC analyst, it's kind of a entry-level like position for security. Most of those skills you can train for, right? And we've done it and we do it, right? So it's not something that you can't train for. Yes, it would be great if they already had experience with all these tools and experience with the different skill sets that we're looking for, but instead looking for the character traits that find a good employee. What are the character traits that stand out to find somebody that's going to be a good A player, basically, is kind of the way they word it. Is somebody that's an A player. And what's an A player? What's somebody that's coming to your team that is going to elevate your team, is going to make your team better. They're going to be an asset to that team And I'm just going to read some of these traits that they highlight. Well, these are the traits that they highlight to look for. Drive, resiliency, adaptability, humility, integrity, effective intelligence, team ability, curiosity, emotional strength. So these are character traits, right? These are things that stand out. And what if I'm looking for a SOC analyst or an information security professional, how does that match up to these character traits? Well, I'll just run through some of these, but like drive. How can I see that they're driven? They might tell me they're driven. They may say, yes, I love information security and I'm driven about information security. Well, show me. What are you doing? What are you doing when you're not at work that shows me that you are driven? Oh, well, I'm out there and I'm playing around with, Hack the Box or other tools, or but maybe you don't have that time, right? Maybe you have, kids and a family, and you only have so much time to spend doing this. But that's fine. But what do you have a passion? Do you actually have a passion? You can say I'm passionate about information security, but how can I tell that? And you can tell. You can generally tell. It's not just lip service. How do you present that to me? Resiliency, adaptability, humility. Humility is huge, right? Integrity, effective intelligence. So effective intelligence is not just your book knowledge, but how you use, practical intelligence to solve a problem. Like, if there's a problem in front of you, how do you use what you know to apply that? Not just that you know all the information, but how do you actually apply it in a real world scenario? Team ability. Well, let me go back to integrity. In security, and integrity is everything, right? If you have, it's like either 100% or zero almost. Like if you don't have integrity, then you don't have integrity, right? So, it's the one that's hard to necessarily gauge. But if there's anything that comes up and you're not showing how you're genuine, you're honest, trustworthy, that we can't be able to trust you because you have so much more access and information than a typical maybe employee, even an information technology employee. It's everything. If you don't have integrity, or if there's even a doubt that you might not have integrity, then you're not even in the picking, in the options. Team ability is that how will you work well with the team? Curiosity, how curious are you? Are you asking questions? Are you interested? Do you want to learn more? Emotional strength, right? Like, is there something about you? Maybe you have a tough life right now. Maybe things are not going great. But how do you weather through those issues? Do you fold up? Do you stay strong? Do you have something, some firm foundation to help you, guide you through the tough times or tough situations? And so in recent interviewing, one of the things we did, and I've done this before, but I really, really thought this was a great experience this time, was we would do the typical, get the resume, do the question and answers for the interviewee, and tell us about yourself, all that good stuff, right? Typical interview questions. But we lined up a legit real world scenario, okay? This is where the rubber meets the road, right? This real world scenario, it was a legit incident that we had that wasn't an easy one to solve or to figure out what happened, and it took time, and it took us time to figure it out, but we did. And it's because we knew a person wasn't going to know our environment, they weren't going to be as familiar with our tools, and I explained to them that's not the point of this scenario, right? We're gonna throw you in here, and it's gonna be hard, and you're gonna struggle more than likely. Although some people, we were kind of like, man, these people are gonna solve it quickly because of what their resume showed. Nobody solved it quickly. Everybody struggled, which was good. That's actually really good. That's what you want to see, right? Because when you're in that scenario, literally, we're gauging each one of these character traits. And we did gauge each one of these character traits, and actually did an after assessment measuring these character traits. So when you got stuck, we wanted to see what you did, how you dealt with that. And it's different from a typical, some people took it as, oh, I have to know this to pass the test. If I don't know the answer, I'm not passing the test. They're not going to hire me. That's not, and I told them at the outset, I'm not hiring you. I'm not looking to hire you because you know all the answers. I'm looking to hire you to see how you handle it when you don't know the answers. What are the character traits? I didn't say this, but like, what are the things that how you deal with that? And so we would watch people when they run into the roadblock. What did they do? What was their thought process? And we'd ask them, hey, what are you thinking here? What's going on? What do you know? What don't you know? How do you think through this? And we didn't just leave them and drop them in the ocean and let them suffer, right? We threw them a lifeline, and we would guide them through it. And we would say, okay, well, I see you're stuck here. That's okay. And we told them, hey, you can use Google. We use Google all the time, right? So it wasn't like we left them. We love Google, right? We're Googling all the time. So we let them Google, but we just wanted to see how they Google things, right? And that was what was important. How did they think through the problem? What did they query? So the people that did great, and nobody killed it, but the people that did better and the top ones would talk through what they were thinking, analyze the problem, and the biggest things would be able to detach and step back and look at the bigger picture. The people that didn't do so well, they would get so focused on the individual problem that they would get lost in the weeds. And if they didn't know the answer to the first problem, because there's many levels and layers to the challenge, they would get kind of freeze up and they'd be like frozen in the details, and not because 1 plus 1 didn't equal 2 right away. They were like, I don't know, but they had a hard time saying they didn't know, and that's where humility kicked in. Were they able to say, you know what, I don't know, right? And there's many times when we're doing an investigation, an incident, we don't know. We have to rely on each other in our team strength to help solve the problem, and being okay with saying, you know what, this is not my area, this is not my strength in this one thing, I need help, right? That was a big one. If people were more hesitant to say that, or they had a hard time being humble, and the way, like I said, how we measured that is whether or not they were okay saying that. So how they handled that, and what they asked us, and when we asked them questions like, what are you thinking here? What is it that stands out to you about this issue, right? And so we would kind of, guide them through the next phase. It'd be like kind of phase 1. What did they see here? Here's what you know about the problem. Here's what you know about the environment. And then move them to the next challenge, or the next phase in the challenge, through the whole scenario. Resiliency and determination and drive. Like, were they pushing forward? Were they pushing forward in a way that shows that they were going to do their best? Were they going to, even though this was hard, were they going to try their best to tackle it and not give up, right? Were they going to kind of get to a point where they decided, you know what, I can tell already that I'm not going to succeed in solving this problem, so I'm throwing in the towel almost, right? And in a real scenario, this happens on occasion where you're under the gun. You're in the fire, and everybody wants to know what's going on, and everybody wants to know what's happened and what you found, and people are asking from multiple directions. At the same time, you're trying to do forensics and triage and all that stuff. That you have to be able to keep a calm head, a cool and calm head, because that's what's going to happen. It could happen anytime at any moment. And so those were the things what we look for is, now that we're throwing and piling the heat on, and not in a in a bad way of, oh, you don't know this or anything like that. Like that wasn't it at all. It was, hey, you're being watched, you're being monitored. We're literally watching everything you do. We're sharing a screen with you. This is through Zoom, and that's going to pile the tense intensity up. And it's a hard problem. It's not easy. You don't. It's not going to be a quick answer type thing. It's not a multiple choice test. And so those factors made it difficult, right? It made that challenge, realistic, and it is real. It was a legit real scenario. But how did you adapt, right? How did you tried this tactic, you tried this tactic, did you get stuck? And everybody got stuck, but that was okay. Like, how did they try to change what they were doing and their approach and think through it differently? Like I said, being able to detach was big because you can so easily get stuck and caught in the weeds and get tripped up and not be able to, because you rarely have all the answers are rarely there, right? You don't normally have everything you want to know. It's rare that you have all the logs you want. It's rare that you have all the information you want. It's not normal, right? And we had people that had, this is for a SOC analyst position, but they had master's degree in cybersecurity or something related, and they had a lot of book knowledge, but applying that in the practical sense was a challenge. We had people like that. They would just get stuck because they didn't have, they weren't able to apply it in a real scenario, unfortunately. How curious were they? How often did they ask questions, right? Like, how often did they ask questions? Some people didn't ask questions, and even though we asked them questions, they asked very few questions and got stuck on it. And so that was something we measured. Like, these are all like a 1 to 5 scale. How did you do 1 to 5? And were they curious? Were they asking questions like, "What about this? What about that? Why is this way?" Right? And trying to understand better. And that was a measure because we're always trying to question what we have, question what's in front of us, question the scenario, question the what ifs, right? And emotional strength, and this, I haven't covered all of these, but these are kind of the highlights. Are you somebody that if you were the one manning the ship, right, and we were not available or out, on vacation, right? How would you handle this type of scenario and that cool, calm head? We wouldn't be as concerned about you being able to weather the storm, right? Like, thinking calm, thinking clear, yes, everything's on fire, the house is on fire, but we were looking for how are you handling this scenario where if you were the only one or part, maybe one or two, we would be able to feel better about you staying cool about the situation, right? And those were the big things we were looking for. I would say probably, all these were important, but definitely humility was huge. Resiliency, adaptability, integrity is like, it's a must-have. Effective intelligence, team ability. These are all great, right? It's kind of hard to like really pick the top ones, but because they're all good. Some of them are easier or harder to measure. But so advice, like, what would I tell somebody that was looking for a position to work for us, right? I would recommend, trying to work through, thinking about these traits and maybe where your weaknesses are, right? Where are you weak? Where are you strong? And being humble, right? Like, that's a big one, right? Because if you're humble, then you realize what your weaknesses are. You realize where you're strong, but you realize where you're weak, and you're okay with that. And but you want to work through those and get better at those, right? If hey, I have a hard time when things get hot, it's hard for me to stay calm and stay collected, right? Well, knowing that is half the battle, and then working through, okay, how can I work through that problem so that I can get better at it? And I know that it's something that I'm working on, and I'm honest about it, but I'm trying to get better so that if something happens in a real scenario, I'm not going to freak out, okay? So it's not so easy. It's not an easy thing to resolve as far as like I can go learn this tool, I can go learn this skill. It's more about how you can get better at things like these character traits so that you can be a better team member and an A player for whoever you join, whatever team you join. It doesn't matter. You're bringing your best effort to the environment, and that's what we were measuring. Like, who are people that we think would be bringing their best effort to be another team player, another A team player, to our environment, to our group. And I thought it was great. But the biggest things I thought about it that was so much better than the typical kind of interviewing is I didn't have to worry about what was on the resume. Like, the resume would have all the buzzwords, all the keywords, but I didn't have to focus on that. And we could tell very quickly whether or not what you said when you said, Python, did you actually know Python? Because, this scenario had some flavor of Python in it. So there's the honesty, integrity, Now, it's not saying you're lying because maybe you have used Python, but being open and honest about it and saying, I put Python in there, but really, be honest with you, I've only used it here and here, right? Because this scenario was measuring a lot of those skill sets that you would want to see in a SOC analyst. Like I said, though, that's okay. If you didn't know Python, that's fine, right? That's something we can help teach you. That's a skill we can help get you better at. You have to have the drive to want to get better, but we can help you get there. And that's the way, we approached it. So anyways, this is a long one, but I thought this was a good one just because, I think I'm going to continue to do these kind of interviews as we go forward. It really was an eye-opener for me. This book, The Talent War, was really good, and I really think that it's changed my mindset. I knew at the end of each one where people were from a skill set, but also from where they were in accordance to these character traits. And it's not like it's a one-time test, right? So it's not like, man, this is the end-all be-all. We know everything about their character. No, right? It's not going to happen. But we definitely had better insight than if we had just done a typical, hey, tell us about yourself, tell us about a time you failed, blah, 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 right? We were going to find out. We're going to find out when you fail, when you can't solve the problem. We were going to find out what happened and how you handled it, right? So, sorry for the long one, but I really think this is valuable information. It's just fresh on my mind, and I think it's something that you can think through. Maybe you will run into this scenario. If you're looking to get into security, I'm recommending it. This kind of interview, and I've done it before, but this one I really doubled down on, and we did. So, thank you for watching, and if this is helpful, just let me know, and I appreciate it. See ya.